Hello and welcome to today's community hours for the newly launched Cayosoft Guardian Protector. My name is Jennifer Lupiba, I'm Vice President of Marketing here. I'm very excited to welcome you to our first community hours for our free threat detection and change monitoring solution that we launched last week. I'm going to hand it over to Craig Birch, Principal Technologist here at Cayosoft, who's going to walk through a few use cases and then dive into the product so that you can get a better feel for it and continue to work with this in your environments. Thank you, Craig.
All right. So as Jen mentioned, Cayosoft Guardian Protector, it's our real-time threat detection for hybrid Active Directory environments. So just a little bit of background. So the reason why we really kind of went with a solution is we saw a shrinking AD expertise. A lot Active Directory is 25 years old. A lot of AD veterans are either retiring or getting ready to retire. I've been doing Active Directory for almost 25 years myself, actually as long as 25 years. But also we saw an expanding attack surface. So we saw an expanding more than just Active Directory, more than Entra ID. We saw it where Microsoft Teams has been under attack. Exchange, online has always been under attack. So the modern day attack surface has expanded. So we needed a solution that goes beyond just Active Directory and basic Entra ID hygiene. And we also found out there's some tools out there. And because of the lack of real-time monitoring capability, we felt like they were inadequate for organizations. So we wanted to be able to provide enterprise solution for free to the community, and that's where Cayosoft Guardian Protector came about. I personally worked a lot of hours with the Cayosoft team to kind of build out this solution since I've joined, so I'm really excited about this. I'm not going to hit you with a lot of slides. That's not my goal. My goal is actually get you into the product. But who's it really for? Well, it's really for IT leads and security analysts, but also sysadmins, your identity engineers, compliance and audit teams as well, and then also mid-market to enterprise IT teams. So some organizations, they can't go out and buy best of class solutions to help with hybrid identity security. So we want to be able to basically get out there and provide something enterprise scale for free to the community. So let's jump into the platform. So hopefully you're seeing the platform here. This is Guardian Protector. It is based on our core architecture, Guardian. I will not hide that. So Guardian Protector includes our threat detection capability, our real-time change monitoring capability, as well as alerting in the environment. From an architecture perspective, it's a basic architecture. So basically, it's a Windows server. It has a SQL backend. And then from a service count perspective, we are using a group managed service account to connect to Active Directory, to the DirSync or replication API, however you want to say it. And then basically we've added that with read-only access to different partitions in Active Directory so we can see across the landscape. From an Entra ID perspective, we're creating an Entra ID application in your environment that has only read-only API permissions inside of Entra ID. The authentication is controlled by certificate authentication, so there's no standing privilege in regards to your legacy global admin or global reader aspect. Now, it does require elevated rights to create these applications. For example, for the Entra ID application, you will need a global administrator to create the application, but once the application is created, it's running on the context of the application itself. Same thing with the group managed service account. You will need elevated rights to create that group managed service account inside of your environment. And we actually recommend that when you're doing the group managed service account, that you use an account initially with schema admins, because we are adding read access to across the partitions so that we can see changes at the schema level as well. That's entirely up to you from a community, if that's the permissions. But if you don't, then you might not get full visibility across the landscape for Active Directory. Again, once you do that initial creation, it creates the GMSA, and then basically from there, it'll have read access to the environment. You do no longer need to have your account or any account in any of those elevated roles from that aspect. So the very first thing that you want to do after you add your domains, and obviously we've put this out on our wiki and our Reddit, and we'll get into that later, but the very first thing you want to do is once you get into Guardian Protector is on day one, you want to go check for updates. So you want to go check to see if there's any updates out there. This is basically once you activate the product, it needs to know that it's now in a working condition. So it's done the ingestion, it'll basically run some basic jobs, and we'll get into some of those jobs here. But we want to do a check for updates initially. You will never have to do this again from that aspect because it will automatically pull those down. But for the initial run, you're going to want to do that. And then the same thing, you're going to run the threat meter. So just run the initial threat meter. I've already done that in my environment, so I do not need to run it again. It's going to run in the background for me. But for the very first time, you want to run that in your organization once you kind of stand that up. So what is the threat meter doing? Well, it's going out into Active Directory, Entra ID, Microsoft Intune. So I just saw a question come in. How long does it take to run? It'll depend on how many objects are in your environment. So for example, if you have thousands and thousands or even hundreds of thousands of objects, obviously it's going to take longer for it to run. It'll let you know when it's run because you'll see basically the job status from that aspect. For a lab environment, super easy to run this. It only takes a couple minutes, but for a real production environment with real, I'll say like 20,000 plus objects, it could take an hour or so for it to run. Typically, that's what we see in organizations. Larger organizations, maybe a little bit longer, but usually within 1 to 2 hours, you would expect this to run in your environment. Hopefully that answered your question. So what are we doing? We're actually going out and ingesting your current state of the state. So we're reading in the Active Directory, the Entra ID, the Microsoft Intune, the Teams, Exchange Online settings, and then we run it through our threat analysis. Our threat analysis is actually going to then look to see if there's misconfigurations or vulnerabilities that exist in your environment. And what we do is uncover those just like other solutions out there on the market. And then we'll go out and provide you the details behind the threat. So we can see here we've had some threat alerts in the environment. So here, for example, we have the threat description. So we can see that basically someone added a certificate to my Entra ID application that could be a potential risk to my environment. So we're going to trigger that alert, and then we'll provide you the remediation advice from that aspect. So once it does the initial threat ingestion, the next thing I would say is you probably want to go in and download your summary report. So you can go in and click download the summary report, and then this will open up this nice threat summary report. And we classify things in a couple different ways. So critical, high, medium, or low, informational, and that is what we call our severity ranking. And we have some detailed information. I'll put that information on the wiki later today as well on the Reddit on how we classify that, as well as the remediation complexity. So remediation complexity is not based on technical complexity. It's based on if I were to perform this change in my production environment, what's the likelihood of this causing some kind of issue in my production environment, and whether that an application or some kind of large user impact? And this is based on doing assessments in the past and doing migrations, right? So real industry knowledge from, I'll say, multiple individuals here at Cayosoft and beyond. And really, the reason why we wanted to put in that remediation complexity is because not everyone understands all these threats, so that's why we kind of built all the details around that. But we also want them to know that there is some risk with performing some of this remediation in your environment if you do not know exactly what these are from that perspective. So if we look at it from that aspect, I always say once you get a Guardian Protector in your environment, you do that initial ingestion, you see this threat summary report, where do you want to begin? Well, there are things in your environment that may be what I'll call low-hanging fruit. So how do I work this? I focus on the most critical, lowest complexity items first. Why? Because that means I might be able to take big risk off the table with little to no effort, with no impact to my business. So I can immediately raise the bar from my identity landscape. Then once I get through those, I will critical medium, and then try to work through all the mediums unless there's something that's preventing me. Critical high means usually I need to have a lot of background on why that particular application or settings in place. What could that be? That could be something like we have service accounts that have SPNs in our environment that could be used for application or maybe even unconstrained delegation, those types of things. But then I would move to high low. So I'm moving from high to then low and then high to medium and then down the stack. And as I do these things, I'm basically going in and following the remediation guidance. So we'll go in and we'll follow the remediation guidance. We know exactly what's in play from what we need to remediate. Once we harden our environment, that's what we want to get to. So the other challenge, though, just besides having something around threat detection, and we definitely need things around threat detection and identity security posture management, but we know that Active Directory and Entra ID and really this hybrid identity platform isn't a static platform. It is a dynamic platform in nature. So think about it. If we go in and clean up and harden our environment, and then I'll just pick on Jennifer here. She goes in and has access to these environments. She maybe goes behind me and goes in and makes a change that puts me back in my weak state. In that weak state that maybe I just cleaned up, what happens? I just drifted away. So administrative drift is real in an environment for sure. But also the next time I might see that, if I don't have real time or near real time detection, what's going to happen? I'm not going to see that until either the next time I run a scan or do an assessment, or maybe hire someone to come in and do a pen test. With Cayosoft Guardian Protector, this is where the game changes. We can actually see that because of the change monitoring in the platform, which I'll get into next, and we can see that live change and we can see that drift occur. We can alert via Microsoft Exchange Online and via Microsoft Teams from that aspect. So I'm not waiting for the next pen test, and I'm not waiting for the next scan to occur in my environment. We're going to get that instant feedback, I'll say near real time, because we are talking to the replication API or directory sync in Active Directory, and we're using Graph API in Microsoft. So it's going to be as near as it can be from that aspect. So what am I talking about? So inside of Guardian Protector, now we've moved on from our threats. Now what we're talking about is the change history module of the platform. So here we're getting live feed right from this environment. For example, if I go in and add somebody to Active Directory, and we'll just pick on the admin SD holder because this is one of a hidden gem, I call it, inside of Active Directory. And if I go in and give the bad guy, right? So we'll go in and give the bad guy full control over this object here. I want to be able to see that instantaneously or near real time from that aspect. So I want to be able to see that change instantaneously in my environment. And then obviously we want to be able to then, get an alert, which we'll get here in a second here from that aspect. And what we want to be able to see then is some details. We want to see that basically, in this case, it was the administrator, but here we can see the bad guy was giving full control over the admin SD holder object in Active Directory. Well, we know that that's something we wouldn't want in our environment. So I can easily go in, now I've known that this occurred in my environment, I can go in and immediately remediate this in the organization. Why? So now I'm not waiting for my next threat or my next scan or that next pen test, because now I have real-time telemetry that shows me exactly what was changed, who did the change, and as an admin, I can decide if that was appropriate, which obviously for the admin SD holder, that's not something we want. So we would go in and roll that back. Are there questions out there, Jen, that I missed? I kind of looked away to kind of show that demonstration.
No, I think someone else was going to ask. Nope, I don't see one. I did want to ask. Oh, here's one. By the way, going back to the initial run, that's the first time run. And after that, it doesn't take that long. Is that correct? That first
Say
time
again,
run?
Jen.
When you initially ran the threat detection, the question that Jake had, when you run it, it's the initial run, the first time run, correct? That takes that time?
Correct. From
Okay.
there, it's Delta. We're looking at we're picking up Delta changes.
Okay, just want to clarify that. And then 2 questions. Is Guardian Protector using IIS as the web server like Administrator does?
I do believe so, yes. I need to confirm that from an architecture perspective, but I'm pretty sure it does.
I'll send a note and try to track that one down. And then the other one, does this solution require installing an agent on endpoints, or is it agentless?
It's agentless, so we connect to these platforms using I'll call it native API. So DurSync through a service account called a group managed service account, and through Graph API using the Entra ID application that's created. So no agents to deploy in your environment. So we're talking directly to that what I'll call Entra ID, M365 landscape, and Active Directory through those service accounts in your environment. Great question. But again, when we were talking, so it wasn't just Active Directory that is our threat landscape. So we need visibility into changes, or in Entra ID as well. So let's go in and let's make a change inside of Entra ID. I'm going to pull this up so I can see that. And I'm just going to, I have an application called Hacked You. You probably are not going to have an application called Hacked You. Right now, I'm going to add a cert, and I'll just say spell today. There we go. And then this is going to go out and pick that change up here. And if, again, we can already see that we got the threat. This should show up in the telemetry here shortly once we ingest that from Entra ID. So again, we're getting this telemetry back from the environment, and you can do additional filtering as well.
There's another question here.
We can see here we had that. I don't know if it's coming in right now. So we will get an alert here. Again, because we're making that connection to Entra ID, it could take a couple minutes for that change to pop into change history. But again, you're not waiting for a scan or maybe a next pen test to find this up in your environment. You're actually going to then get this, near real time, as I mentioned. I think there was a question.
Yeah, first of all, I heard back from R&D. We don't depend on IIS.
Well, there you go.
So there's that one. And then the other question is, if we installed it with a service account instead of GMSA, can we change that later? Same for SQL. If we use the built-in and we migrate to an external one later.
Yeah, so you can use a regular service account legacy, but that would require elevated permissions right now. So the read-only comes with the GMSA. Now with the GMSA, what we do is we rotate that password every 7 days, and a normal GMSA rotates the password every 30 days. It's more secure from that perspective. We would support a legacy, but it does require you then to put it in elevated groups, which we don't want for Guardian Protector. That would be more for our traditional product if you want to do rollback, etc., which doesn't include Guardian Protector. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Same for SQL. If we use the built-in, can we migrate to an external one later?
Yeah, so you would actually just reinstall and then point to the new SQL. If you want to go to, I'll say, a more of an enterprise grade SQL, whether that be Azure SQL or on-prem SQL running in your environment, or even AWS SQL, we support all three of those. You basically then just reconnect everything. And so there's no true migration path. We're going to migrate the previous data over from that aspect. You would just start over and re-ingest and basically start the process over from that aspect.
And then there was a question about what kind of alerting is available in the free version versus the paid version.
So alerting is going to be limited to our threats capability. So in the change history. Now the paid version has custom alerting, so you can actually create detailed custom queries and then build custom alerts as part of the paid solution, where this is just going to be the built-in alerting that comes standard with threats and what we've already pre-built in the change monitoring or change history piece. For example, you could, if you had the paid version, you can actually create a custom alert to track the admin SD holder change and then automatically roll that back as part, but that's not part of Guardian Protector. So I don't want to focus on those features, but if you want more information, we can definitely spend some time around that.
And then the last question about switching to change from service account to GMSA, is that a reinstall?
It's not. It's just we can just basically go out and change the credentialing from that aspect. Is there a doc on adding SSL cert and custom DNS name? Where'd it go? Sorry, I missed that. Maybe you can.
Is there a doc on adding an SSL cert and custom DNS name since it's not using IIS?
Yes, we can provide that. I can actually upload some of that information later today to the wiki. it should be on our regular support site. I can just put it to the Reddit wiki.
Yeah, I'll put a link here to the Reddit. I did put all the links here to download the threat library to Reddit, also in this chat. So, but those folks online, make sure you look at that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you haven't downloaded it, give it a try. Join the Reddit community. Check out our threat directory as well. So we'll share some of that information. So okay. So one of the things, and I put it on the Reddit, there are a couple threats out there that require elevated rights. So you can temporarily run with elevated rights if you wanted to get those. I think there's like 5 or 6 threats that do require some elevated rights into Active Directory from that aspect. So, and that can be done right as like basically a point in time. So you can go into the configuration and go under your managed domains. And for example, I have this domain. I can go in and temporarily do an elevation of access, but you need to provide an account that can elevate it because we do not have any access from that aspect. You would have to go in and provide an account that has the ability. What's it going to do? It's going to temporarily add it to domain admins. Then you can actually remove it after the fact. So it's a just-in-time elevation from that aspect. For the most part, you won't need that. We're looking at rewriting some of those threats that require elevation, so I'll be upfront about those. Again, there's a handful from that aspect. So you could elevate, run it. They're more, I'll say, domain level threats. So it's not often that they would probably change, but again, you could still see it even from a threat perspective. If something did change, you would still pick it up through the DirSync capability. So even though you might not have that threat now, you could actually see the change live in the change history from that aspect as well. So again, it's tracking basically all changes, right? So whether it be Entra ID applications, Microsoft Intune settings from the portal, Teams, Exchange Online, Active Directory, groups. So one of the things that you might, is a common scenario. So we talked about maybe helping with incident response. So let's actually talk about a scenario from incident response. Maybe we have a group in here in our environment code, and it allows me, and what's this group doing? It's actually licensing all my users inside of Active Directory. Hey, we've all made mistakes. I was an AD admin back in the day. I run a script. I accidentally have the wrong setting, and what happens? It goes away. We lose all those group members. Well, what we can see here is all of those users were impacted. So now just think about it from this aspect. Maybe the service desk getting overwhelmed. They call in and they say, hey, the Rock, calls in and says, hey, I can't get access to my email. I lost access to Teams in my environment. So what can you do? You can actually go in and search for the Rock through the change history and see what happened to his account. And we can see, hey, by the way, that he was a member of this M365 group. Okay, so, but we know that a lot of people are getting called into the environment. So here you can actually go in and see the change history of the group itself. And now you know all the users that were added into that group. So with Guardian Protector, you're going to be able to see, and you would have to manually put that back. With our page solution, you would be able to hit rollback and it would instantly put those users back into the Active Directory group. But that's not part of Guardian Protector, so I don't want to focus on that. But you do have the intel or the information that you could manually put this back or run a script from that aspect to kind of put it back from that as well. So it does give you that information so that you can quickly get yourself back up and running, and it helps you triage much faster than if you might not have something of this capability in your environment. And certainly, if you were running like a pen test, they wouldn't see the AD group change. Or if you're running some kind of third-party, I'll call it identity security posture management solution, it's not going to see the group removal either. And that's the gap that we were trying to really close with Guardian Protector. Yes, there are a lot of great solutions out there that provide intel around identity security posture management for Active Directory, and even get into Entra ID, and they're good for what they're needed for. But there was a gap when it comes to real-time visibility in free tools, and that's why we wanted to build a solution. I don't even want to call it a tool. That's why we built Guardian Protector and really opened it up for also having that real-time change monitoring, because that truly is the game changer for an organization being able to quickly see that, because not all threats come from outside. It could be, like I said, it could be just an admin making a mistake. It happens on a regular basis. Actually, you're probably more likely to have that happen than someone maliciously trying to get in. Now, you do want to harden your environment. Do not get me wrong, because all it takes is one little misconfiguration in your environment, and guess what? You can move laterally, get privilege escalation, and then obviously they can, manipulate your environment. Maybe they go in and create some persistence in your environment. Well, Guardian Protector would see that persistence from an admin SQ holder to someone getting added to ACLs in your environment, to someone modifying group membership, to pivoting to Entra ID, right? Creating malicious applications, adding ownership in an application, like we saw with Midnight, the Blizzard attack in 2024, or maybe it was 2023, where someone actually was able to pivot within Microsoft's tenants by doing a basic password spray, getting access to a test tenant, and then pivoting over to their production tenant. All of those signals we actually detect as part of the Guardian, not only from a threat detection perspective, but also from the change monitoring or change history perspective. You do get 2 weeks of change history. So that's one of the things. So you can go back 2 weeks as part of the change history, where, again, I'm not really going to talk specifically, but with paid, it's unlimited change history. So it is limited from that aspect, but it does give you more visibility than what you probably have currently in your environment, from a real-time perspective, and without having to create like custom sim roles or signals to detect these things. Any questions so far?
I don't see any other additional ones, Craig.
So if you want to, so we do use MITRE. So we use both MITRE Attack, MITRE Defend, ANSI, and we also develop some of these in-house. For example, you might have heard of, you may or may have not heard of, like last year there was an ESX authentication vulnerability bypass. That if there was a group inside of Active Directory called ESX admins, and you had an older version of VMware, it would actually give them full control over the entire ESX environment, and that would allow basically root access to the ESX. So we actually created a threat around that detection based on the intel that we were able to get on basically the vulnerability. We saw that our product, right, has the capability to detect these types of changes. Why don't we build a threat around that? So we actually build a threat definition around that. Yes, threat definitions get updated automatically. They come out monthly. So we are putting out threats roughly every month, and unless there's a 0 day that we can address. So certain 0 days, right, they might not have anything to do with Active Directory, or they require some kind of agent technology, and we're not agent based, so it's not something we'd be able to address. But if it's something that we can address, we will build a threat definition, right, around that, and then we'll put that out in our product, and we'll do what we'll call a 0 day release. Not our typical monthly release. We will put it out much faster from that coverage. We've done that twice. The ESX vulnerability, as well as the Quillen ransomware group, was targeting Active Directory group policy by putting in some batch files as part of their logon scripts that was actually scraping Chrome browsers, etc., to steal passwords on machines. So we put in some detection around that capability as well from that aspect. So again, we'll probably see more of that. There was some, if you think about the more recent one, was probably Bad Successor. With Windows 2025, we've added some of that capability as well. We have a team that kind of focuses on this specifically. We're a smaller organization, so we try to get those out as quickly as possible from that aspect. But yeah, all threat definitions get updated automatically. The product can update automatically as well. You don't have to download, reinstall. It'll go out and check from that aspect. And then we do, mostly I'll say quarterly releases, but we also have what we call maintenance releases. So I think we have a maintenance release coming out in regards to improving the ability around. We had some issues initially with connecting to a group managed service account for certain environments. We might get a handshake error. There's a fix that's coming out in a maintenance release. I think that's going to be released next week for that particular situation. We do continuously evolve this product. Again, it is based on our core. We're not hiding that fact. It is based on the core Guardian platform. So as Guardian gets those capabilities, Protector gets those capabilities, there will be some functionality that will stay specifically for paid customers. And there obviously anything that Guardian Protector gets, then everybody gets as well. Did I answer that question? I think I probably answered most of it. Was there any other questions, Jen? These are great questions.
You answered the one about email security. Did you answer that one?
Didn't get that one. I didn't
Oh.
hear it.
Would you say the primary focus of the solution is protecting and alerting on Active Directory users rather than email security?
Correct. We do look for Exchange Online though. So we do look for like Exchange Online, mail flow rules, permissions, etc. We see changes in Exchange Online. We're not doing phishing. So we're not in line where we're doing, we're going to protect phishing. It's more around protecting the identity. So think of if it has to do with identity, we can look at it and, evaluate it and then alert on it from that aspect. But if it's data like the mailbox itself or someone doing a phishing, there's other solutions out there that focus on that. That's not an area that we want to spend time in yet.
Some folks are typing. Thank you. There are more questions coming in, I believe. Measures are you taking to prevent supply chain attacks? We're particularly concerned about this for security software based on what happened with companies like F5, SolarWinds, and others.
So we've gone through different certifications, SOC. I think we're working on ISO. So there's definitely things that we put in place. I won't go into all the details from that aspect. From a Cayosoft perspective, we're helping organizations kind of identify where they have those misconfigurations and maybe lateral movement occurring in their environment, maybe could be a supply chain attack. But we do have protective measures in there in regards to how we're dealing with the software itself, how we're our people, our process, all of that stuff from a certification perspective. We have those certifications.
Looks like this is a very useful tool. Thank you for sharing it with the community. This will really help us close the gap in our AD knowledge. Thank you. That's awesome to see and read. Are there any plans to become GovRAMP certified?
So right now, this is not a SaaS solution, so we don't have to be FedRAMP certified. We are working through our CMCC certification from a vendor perspective, not specifically for this solution, just from Cayosoft as a whole from the CMCC guidelines that was recently put out. Now, what I will say is as we move, if we decide we're going to move into SaaS, then if we want to continue to work in federal locations, then obviously FedRAMP would be a hard requirement for a lot of federal organizations because of the SaaS. Right now, we're an on-prem technology. So when I say on-prem, I'll say we're a Windows server-based technology. So it's not a SaaS solution. Be ran as infrastructure as a service in any cloud as well. But again, we don't have those restrictions today. And all the data resides in the customer environment from that aspect. So any of the information that you find with Cayosoft Guardian Protector, that's all your data. It stays on your servers, so you're responsible for protecting the server itself and the data from that aspect. Due diligence and making sure from like vulnerability, etc., like the software meets the required standards.
I think that's the benefit of the freemium in a larger enterprise solution of the Guardian platform. Is it's built in the Guardian platform. It's built there. You can see some of the grayed out things that are more the upgrades, the paid versions, but you get the benefit of a lot of that quality checks, software security, supply chain checks here within it. What are the defaults and configurable retention periods for logs in this solution?
So it is 2 weeks. So basically right now you're limited to 2 weeks from a retention policy. If again, didn't really go into the paid, but the paid is unlimited. You set the retention policy and you can have archive database. With Protector, it's limited from that aspect.
All right. I don't see any other questions right now. I'm going to post again the links to the Reddit community, the threat library, and the download if you have yet to do that.
Well, so I guess as far as next steps, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know. So if you haven't already downloaded Guardian Protector, please go out and download Guardian Protector. Give it a test. You can explore our threat directory as well. It's growing. We're adding more threats to the threat directory. We have way more coverage than what shows the threat directory. And we're just building that asset out. So stay tuned. We put more out every day. And then join the Reddit community. So we built a Reddit community around Guardian Protector to help folks get started with getting up and running with Guardian Protector, but also with helping organizations understand around some of these threats, some of the, I'll call it tips and tricks around Guardian Protector. I've put out a couple over the last couple of days, but also we want feedback from the community on what do you like about it? Also, what do you not like about it? So tell us, the good, the bad, so that we can improve overall. And if there's a specific threat or something that you say, hey, this is something I think that you guys should detect, put it out there. Let's have it for discussion, because I work on the product team. So I'm not on the sales side. I'll be upfront. I work on the product side. And so I work a lot on helping the team prioritize which threats get added next. And if there's something out there that might be missing that you say, hey, this is something we really want to have, or let us know. We'll see if it's something that we can do with our solution. If it's something that we can do with our solution, that may get prioritization. There's some new features coming out. I don't want to disclose all that yet, but some new stuff that will also be coming to Guardian Protector over the next couple months. Again, this is just the start of this hybrid identity solution, and we really are excited about being able to bring something to the community. I'm very active out there. So this is something that I really think will benefit a lot of organizations. And that's why I personally pushed really hard to add some of the features that we added as part of Guardian Protector. So I'm hoping that, again, you'll go out, download, join the community, give us some feedback, and thanks for joining, right? If there's any time that you guys have a question, just jump out on the Reddit. Someone will try to answer it as quickly as possible. Any other questions out there, Jen?
No, a lot of great questions, really good engagement. Thank you, everybody. Please make sure that you do go out and download Protector, join the Reddit community, and bookmark the threat directory. We will make this recording available, and you'll get, it'll be on after this.
We'll put it out on the community as well.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.